Hey guys, it's me, Ellie, aka Looks from the Crypt, and today we are going to be going through my Letterboxd. I know the first time I made one of my Letterboxd videos, I said that this would be like a monthly occurrence or so, that we go through and look at everything I watched.
So that was a fucking lie.
So, today we're going to be getting through April through August. And if going through all the trash and sleaze that have watched in the past 4 months or so sounds like fun to you, grab a snack, grab a drink, and keep on watching. So these first few are technically part of March, just like those last couple days that I didn't think I was going to be watching anything, but then I did, so they didn't make it into the last video. So the first thing I have is Gonjiam Haunted Asylum. This is a found footage movie from 2018. Like I've said before many times, is that I really love found footage movies. It's one of my favorite horror subgenres, and this one got like a lot of hype and a lot of praise within the found footage community. Personally, overall, I thought this one was pretty awesome. I love the concept, the general vibe, etc. I feel like there's also some other things that made this movie a lot more enjoyable and kind of made it stand out. Is that a lot of the main characters were actually people I enjoyed and I like seeing. I gave this a 3.5 star rating out of 5 on Letterboxd. The effects were pretty solid all in all. In addition to, they were able to build some pretty good suspense throughout. I just wish there was some consistency with the scares because I felt like some of them were pretty lackluster, but overall I had quite a bit of fun with this one. So next we have is Uma from 2022. I gave it 2 stars. Basically, I'll just read you a Letterboxd review I saw from somebody else that kind of summed up the experience for me. They said, no, but I fuck with y'all for trying. And that's basically how I feel about this. I liked it well enough, but not enough for a rewatch. I feel like it was, all in all, a decently made movie. However, there wasn't scares, and the story simply wasn't as immersive as I would have liked for it to have been. This next one is a controversial and like weird one, and this is Black Metal Veins from 2012. I gave this a 4.5 stars. This is directed by Lucifer Valentine, who are familiar with on this channel. He is the director, creator of the whole Vomit Gore trilogy, and I really liked it. I gave it 4.5 stars. So the thing is that when I watched the Vomit Gore trilogy, I kind of felt like this motherfucker should be making a documentary, just due to like the weird choppy, visceral, like editing he does that just is kind of disorienting. And same with that kind of sound design that he does. I thought it'd be really great for a documentary, and what do you know? He made a documentary. Black Metal Veins is a brutally honest, harrowing, raw, horrifying inside look into the realities of those who are suffering from active addiction. The opening screen is a disclaimer for this movie that's not to glorify drug use, yet to do the opposite and showcase the emotional, physical, and psychological degradation that one may experience, which is honestly an understatement for what we get into with this movie as a whole. This one was a movie that really made me feel something, and it's a really hard to watch documentary, which is something you could probably assume based on what I've already described to you. On screen, we witness total self-annihilation and full descent into depravity as these characters go through their addiction, and we have characters that pass in the process. Just how addiction progresses and what happens to people, whether it be, their mental or physical turmoil. And I am very familiar with how addiction is and how it looks and how it feels to those who are going through it, and then those who are experience it as like an outsider, those who care about those people who are in active addiction, what that's like. It's very close to what I do for like work and things like that. So this one was definitely a really brutal watch for me. And in this documentary, there are points where I felt like maybe we shouldn't be filming. The camera should be turned off, but maybe that's what makes for a good documentarian at the end of the day, although being devoid of moral compass, more or less. However, I feel like it did show us nitty gritty and the ins and outs that one may not even be like aware of. If you feel like you're in like the right spot to watch a movie like this, I highly recommend this one. Way better than any of Lucifer Valentine's any other works. Next we have is Godforsaken from 2020. I give this movie 3.5 stars. This is a found footage possession movie, and it's a very fun, exciting, unique take on a possession film. It went somewhere I totally didn't expect for it to, and it's super intense during its horror elements. It kept me at the edge of my seat constantly, and not to mention it's action packed from start to finish. Like within like the first like less than 10 minutes of the movie, it fucking gets going, and I really enjoyed it. I feel like this one was pretty hit or miss to a lot of people. I tried to like share this movie around to like, you know, the found footage groups and stuff like that. And a lot of people were fucking hating on it, but I really liked this one. I thought this was a genuinely scary movie, and it left me surprised at the direction it went as well. I cannot recommend this enough. Next, we have is Evil Ed from 1995. I give this movie 4 stars. This is just a classic. I absolutely love this one. This was a movie night watch for me with like some friends. And with some of the movies that I feel like are just classics or like things that I can't really add more to the conversation. What can I say that hasn't already been said? Right, like a short like meme like review, and that's kind of why I did this one. But I'll get into this a little bit more with you guys. I just love this movie. The story is the like, well, if you watch all those movies, you're bound to be sick and twisted. Like the classic, what caused the violent action, the movies, video games, or music, or the person? And basically, the premise follows Ed, who is like a, I don't know what the fuck my word is, like film editor, but he censors the movies. And then, you know, after seeing all this like fucked up shit on film, he becomes a sick and twisted killer. Now we have The Last Exorcism from 2010. I gave this movie 3 stars. What mainly piqued my interest about this one is it's found footage, and the dude from Cooking with Huck Botko himself had some contributions here, and I really love a big budget found footage movie just because we are able to move past some of the limitations that our smaller creators do have in making a movie. Although we do still love them, there are limitations there that we have to acknowledge sometimes that can be surpassed with money, of course. Sometimes with these like lower budget like found footage movies is that there is a lot of build up with insufferable acting. However, when we have a bigger budget movie like this where, you know, we do have like actors who are experienced and things like that, that build up feels seamless. I really enjoyed the story, and since the dangers of exorcism have always been fascinating to me, that's like one of my things. It's just how many people fucking are literally murdered during exorcisms, or like tortured more or less, and this is kind of what this surrounds. And then being able to see how they pull off the smoke and mirrors to do this. There are some creepy horror sequences. It was pretty fun. However, the ending was extremely abrupt and rushed. I feel like the ending definitely made it suffer quite a bit. Just as like boom. Our actual last act was maybe 10 minutes kind of thing, which is a really weird feel for a movie like this. Next we have is Found from 2012. I give this movie 3.5 stars. You can see my full in-depth review of this and its sequel, or I guess prequel? I don't know. Headless. I'll have the video somewhere in some region for you guys to click on and look at, where I will go into it more in depth. But I really do love this coming of age film meets like exploitation splatter flick style, which is what Found does. Next we have Trash Humpers from 2009. Directed by our king Harmony Korine, who I am a endless fan for. I give this movie 5 stars. It's just a fucking awesome movie. So if you are familiar with Harmony Korine and you do like his work, watch Trash Humpers. You'll have a great time. So basically this movie more or less is the deleted scenes from Bad Grandpa. Follow some old people who are killers, and they also hump that beautiful trash. You'll often hear it referred to as trash pussy, which I'm a big fan of the term. Honestly, it's just a really fun, like nonsensical, like weird shit movie that I also watched on a movie night. As you can tell, my friends probably hate me. Next we have is Don't Go in the Woods from 1989. I give this movie 3 stars. Not gonna lie, this isn't a very good movie by any means. It's basically a plotless movie with lots of kills. Characters are introduced just for the sake of being killed. This is a movie that honestly just overstays its welcome. Otherwise, we get more points from me because that's the thing, it's just a little too long for what it is to actually hold my attention span. Next, we have Hatching from 2022. I gave this 3.5 stars. This is a foreign movie. I saw this at like our little art theater. More or less, this movie just had really great effects that I thought were really awesome. And the animatronic puppet that they use is fucking insane. It took 5 puppeteers to operate. And it's just really well done in that aspect with the effects. And I feel like this is a prime example as to why we need practical effects to make a comeback. Really strange body horror movie that follows what I would call probably the most accurate depiction of a family vlog channel I've seen in a movie. I have somewhat of a controversial one. The movie itself is pretty controversial, and my opinion on it is also pretty controversial. And that movie is TFW No GF from 2020, directed by Alex Moyer, who I absolutely fucking hate. I give this movie 2 stars. It's a documentary about incels. I'm somebody who grew up perpetually on the internet, so I'm a woman, so I'm pretty familiar with the culture and what that's like. And I've spent my time lurking 4chan, Reddit, etc. I know the subject basically, and this movie, my problem is that it is more or less a soapbox for the entirely delusional incels to go off as to why they're outsiders being rejected from society, but never really considering why in their own behavior. And I just wish this movie went further and deeper into the culture and how we got here and why the greater society does not fuck with this kind of person. And my problem with it is I feel like a good documentary is thoroughly objective, right? No bias or whatever, but this documentary was entirely biased. And it's the kind of movie I feel like if you weren't aware of incel culture going into this, you would probably feel sympathetic towards these people. And it tries to make people sympathize with them when we have really reprehensible people here. And for example, I mean, and you're supposed to feel bad for them because like, oh, well, it was a joke why I posted that, and they were posting about spray shooting and posting about wanting to beat and murder women, and you're supposed to be like, oh yeah, he was just joking, but it's like, no, not really. And even one of our main leads here that we follow got arrested for child pornography shortly after the film was released. So it just leaves a really bad taste in my mouth to get people to try to sympathize with people who are objectively terrible. And I feel like because this movie didn't give any context to what the culture is, so unless if you already are familiar with what this culture is like and why people don't like these people, you would be finding yourself sympathizing and feeling bad for all these people, and they're like, woe is me, pity parties, more or less. However, I would love to see a documentary about this with the same idea, but done right. Next, we have Headless. Again, I have my whole ass review dedicated to both Found and Headless. Headless is the movie within the movie of Found. This movie is nothing more and nothing less than what I wanted from it. I give it 3 stars. Next, I have Munchausen from 2013. I give this movie 2 stars. This is directed by Ari Aster, the final boss of Family Issues. And if I'm being honest, I didn't really like this one too much. I just feel like it didn't pack a punch the way it intended. And there's this weird, Disney-esque way about it in terms of the way it's shot and, the soundtrack and things like that. That just kind of made it feel silly and hard to really bring myself to care. Next we have is The Strange Thing About the Johnsons from 2011. I give this movie 4 stars. Also by Ari Aster, a significantly better short film from him. This one, it's really fucking hard to even get into and even start to talk about because it's just fuck, where do I start? If you're interested, I do have a way more in-depth, better video about this one. My 4 disturbing short films. That one. Very, very difficult to watch. It's a hard watch, but it is so good. Alright guys, you gotta fucking buckle up and get your drink for this one. This is Savage Land from 2015. I give the movie 4.5 stars. I had not fucking heard anybody talk about this movie, first off. And again, it is found footage, and it is a mockumentary style found footage movie, and this trailer for this movie is extremely catchy and provocative, and I'm still taken back by how much I enjoyed this one. I didn't expect to like it as much as I did. It's a mockumentary about a really strange occurrence that happened where basically zero population town one day. Everybody was slain in that town, and there's one survivor though that the police and government believe to have been responsible for this massacre, and it is so wild. I will not spoil this for you because I highly recommend you watch this movie. I fucking loved it. I want to scream from the rooftops how much I fucking love this movie because it was way better than I could have imagined and so effective. Like I said, it is a mockumentary style found footage movie and it is so convincing and realistic. I kind of found myself getting like pissed off while watching it due to like the injustices we see here and stuff like that. And it is so convincing and it kind of like, I mean, of course the story at hand is very unrealistic, but the way it's handled and the way, you know, everybody's acting really sends it to be very realistic because it is what would happen if we found ourselves actually in this scenario. This one I can't really say too much about it because I just want you to see for yourself. Next, we have his last radio call from 2022. I give this movie 3 stars. Not gonna lie though, I barely remember it, and I wrote somewhat of like a meme review that is a spoiler, so I don't have much to say about this one other than it's pretty okay. Now we have Deadware from 2022. I give this movie 2.5 stars, but I remember this one way more than the other one. I watched these in literally like the same night, I think. This one has like Y2K 90s feel to it of a couple of friends video chatting and they weird goth bitch decides that she wants to play like a scary game. However, the game is fucking crazy. It's like haunted and possessed and shit. The game that they play actually reminds me, like as I said earlier, I am somebody who's been perpetually on the internet from a very young age, and the game they're playing reminds me of Yvette's Bridal Forum. If you're not familiar, watch some videos or go browse it yourself and you'll know what I mean. It just felt like something that you were bound to come across if you're perpetually on the internet in like the Y2K era. I feel like it had a pretty strong plot, likable enough characters, yet a lot was left to be explained or desired with this one. Next we have is the first installment in the American Guinea Pig movies. American Guinea Pig, Bouquet of Guts and Gore from 2014. I gave this movie 4 stars. This movie just fucks. I'm just going to say it right out. I really liked it. Of course, we're going to be expecting insane effects and gore and all that shit from a movie called Bouquet of Guts and Gore, right? And it delivered. This is also, I guess, technically found footage, and this had a really interesting take on like the typical, like, I guess, you know, Japanese guinea pig, flower, flesh, and blood. I can't recall that exact title, but you know, that style of like just fucking torture, dismemberment movie. It just has like a special place. I liked it a lot more than I thought I was going to, and I feel like I'm in like the minority here because I feel like a lot of people hated the like plot and dialogue, but for me this is kind of what made this movie set apart from other movies akin to it, in the sense that, so the plot follows some people who are making a snuff film, so it's like the making of a snuff film, and we get to hear like the director making directions and being like, oh, I said to start with her left leg and like blah blah, you're not showing enough enthusiasm, I have guys lined up who would take like less money to do this, etc., which I really like. It gives us a sense as to why we're here. I feel like it's a perfect love letter to its predecessors from a different time while being true to what this film is. Now we have Men from Alex Garland, 2022. I saw this movie in theaters. I fucking hated it. I really want to like this one, but it felt like extremely convoluted in itself, and it had a hard time actually making up like an effective point, and it's just so tired and just done and over with, where I was just kind of like waiting for this movie to end. And yeah, this one just didn't really hit for me, and especially because I feel like after a certain point the movie and the plot felt really stuck. And for me, at very least with like A24 movies, I know I'm going to get like a pretty decently made movie regardless. However, I didn't even feel that way with this because I feel like once the plot gave up on itself is when also the cinematography gave up too, and we stopped getting like those like pretty shots that we're used to from A24. So this was just a flop for me. I did not enjoy it. Now we have Let's Stop at the Morgue from 2021. I give this movie 3 stars. It's directed by Sam Hell, which you may be familiar with from like A Broke House and things like that. From my understanding, this is his only non-erotic horror movie. I like this one quite a bit for what it was. Although our killer doesn't have a high body count, this movie still doesn't hold back on the brutality. What we do see is really awesome and just brutal for the most part, and like the effects and the sound on this movie are great, in addition to the like artsy cinematography and getting so many striking shots. I really like this one for that. My only qualm here really is this: I just wish the acting was a little bit better. There are times where like main protagonist who is a killer who works at a morgue and that's how he chooses his victims. When he's talking about his murders and his plans and things like that, he doesn't sound that convincing. Meanwhile, there's scenes that kind of, due to the polarization, kind of emphasizes how poor the acting are at those times, because there's like times when he's talking about his annoying ass coworker that he hates and he says there's so much fucking conviction and so real, which I feel like is something we can all relate to. But then to kind of lose that when talking about murders kind of detaches you a bit. However, all in all, I did like this one, a really awesome low budget underground movie. Oh boy, another one we need a drink for before we get into. Now we have Cat Stick Blues from 2016. I gave this movie 3.5 stars. This is such a fucking funny, bizarre, even pretty, and downright weird as fuck movie. Therefore, naturally, it landed with me. I didn't really know what to expect when going into this one, just due to I didn't know anybody I knew, like, personally who had seen it, and it had, like, a weird TikTok hype, and usually the weird TikTok hype when it comes to movies, I'm not really down with, you know? This was a fucking weird one. Basically, our main protagonist, Ted, plays an awkward weirdo that you can't help but empathize with at times if you have a furry friend that you're close to as well. And he does seem like a genuinely weird, like, motherfucker you just meet. And then it turns into a fucking fever dream. Our story here is that Ted, his cat passes, and he's having a difficult time coping, and he feels that if he kills 9 women, you know, representing each of the cat's lives, it'll bring his cat back to life. And it's just so fucking bizarre. And he wears like a giant cat penis while he does the murders. And the ending is super dreadful and hopeless. And it bums you out. I really like this one. I wasn't really expecting much going into it, but I liked it way more than I expected. If you have like the ability to like just check this out, I recommend it. If you like a really bizarre, unconventional movie that has kind of shocking moments, this might be for you. Yet another controversial movie. I have Dashcam from 2021. I gave this 1 star. I fucking hated this movie. It's directed by the dude who made Host, like Zoom Paranormal. I really enjoyed Host though. But man, where do I start with this one? So this movie follows a woman named Annie Hardy, who has like a Twitch stream or like a stream or whatever, where she drives around her car and raps. She like just freestyle raps. She was in Big Drag. She was in a band called Big Drag, and the premise follows her during COVID, going to go meet up with her former bandmate to go hang out. And she goes like to like a different country to do so. There's some weird, crazy shit that happens. My thing about this movie, why I didn't like it, is so she is basically like an alt-right QAnon conspiracist, like anti-vax, etc. Trumper, which is one thing. However, my qualm is that at first when I watched this, I didn't know who Annie Hardy was. She plays herself, and I really was like, damn, this bitch is so fucking annoying. She's so good at playing somebody that's annoying. However, that's kind of where it gets lost, is because, well, I looked up who she was and I find out that this is just like more so a character piece than a horror movie, because I find out that those are actually her views. She actually does have this like car freestyle show, and she actually is in this band and etc. So my thing is that she's so obnoxious and not funny, but trying to be funny personality. She's like the epitome of like a pick-me girl, but more or less. And yeah, I feel like I would have liked this idea if we had a character like Annie Hardy played by somebody else, because otherwise it's just a character piece. Because even that's like the other problem, is that every horror sequence we get isn't explored or is overshadowed due to Annie Hardy trying to be funny or spew like, you know, some shit about libtards or whatever it fucking may be, which it just gets old after a certain point, because it's like, okay, I get it, but we never actually buckled down. Like during these horror sequences, we never buckle down and get serious. So it's impossible to get scared or really get like that immersed. And it just gets old. It's just really fucking annoying. And if Annie just stopped trying to be her, like, funny in herself, it'd be better. Just the novelty wears off after a certain point and gets like grueling to get through just because she's so annoying and difficult, and then it's kind of hard to really fully enjoy because when you're like, well, this person's not even acting. This is fucking her. So just like, I don't know. And I left a lot of open ends at the end that I didn't even care to even have answered because, like I said, a lot of the plot, a lot of the horror sequences are completely overshadowed by her humor. And not to mention, the trailer is entirely like misleading. I feel like maybe I'd feel a little bit differently if I was aware I was supposed to be getting into a comedy movie. And again, like I said, this isn't really a horror movie. It feels like more of a character piece. After watching Dashcam, it made me want to revisit Spree from 2020. I gave this movie 4.5 stars. Premise of this one is that Joey Curie, he is a spree driver, has like a failed YouTube channel, and has been trying to be like a social media guy, like an influencer for so long. However, he never gets views, he doesn't get subscribers, people don't really care, etc. And he is willing to do anything to get that bit of clout. With that, he decides to, one night will be the night that, does it all for him, and that is on one of his spree drives, he is live streaming the whole thing as he kills all of his patrons, which this movie is hilarious, and it is a openly horror comedy. I have rewatched this one quite a bit. I just feel like it's really hilarious, effective, and it has really good humor throughout. Like, nothing beats seeing Joey Curie run somebody the fuck over while the like Gummy Bear song is playing, yet it still has a super gut punch kind of harrowing ending. I really like this movie. I can't recommend it enough if you're just looking for a fun night. Kurt is Joey Curie's character's name. Kurt's World 96 or some shit. They have videos that play that are his like failed YouTube videos, and they really nail the aspect of like some of those videos. Like, for example, like Elliot Rodger, his videos that he uploaded to YouTube before the tragedy that occurred, it's very reminiscent of that. They really just nailed like his look and his acting and his like mannerisms on how a person like this would be. Next, we have his Old from 2021. I give this movie 1.5 stars. It is M. Night Shyamalan after all. This movie made me laugh my ass off from start to finish, but that's not a good thing in this case. It was just so fucking stupid. Holy shit, I don't want to fucking talk about this movie. I cannot tell you why I decided to put this movie on. It's called The Dark Web Tapes from 2020. I give this a 0.5 star. I give it 0 stars if I could. This is objectively the worst movie I have ever seen in my life, like hands down. Like, to me, it's actually bizarre how terrible this fucking movie is. This isn't even on like for example, The Old, I'd recommend watching it once if you were trying to have a laugh. This is just painful. It's excruciating. It's not even, I cannot recommend this to anybody, not even my worst enemy. Actually, maybe, I don't know, like imagine, the scene in like Clockwork Orange with like, they have his like eyes like clambered open. That would definitely be torture. Like, I feel like maybe this should be like, making people watch this movie should be replaced for like waterboarding and shit like that.
You and I both know the Faustus method takes time. And I've got plenty.
Hey guys, Cool Duder here with a brand new video for you guys.
Movie just like bad YouTube videos. Like, I don't like, we see like a woman doing like a makeup tutorial that is like a fucking half hour, and then this dude called Cool Duder 69 or some shit, him going on about how he like went onto the dark web for views and like all this stuff, and then there's some like weird tampon monster in the middle. I'm not really sure what this has to do with the dark web other than Cool Duder 69 mentions it's the dark web and how it ruined his life or some shit. I don't know. This movie just fucking sucked. Like, do not watch it. Don't even think about it. To be honest, I don't even know why I watched it. This was like an act of self-harm to watch this movie. Next we have is Be My Cat, a film for Anne from 2015. I give this movie 4 stars. I really like this movie, but then again, I am quite the sucker for like DIY guerrilla filmmaking style that Be My Cat brings to the table. Like, our director had never even fucking used the camera or made a movie before doing this. It's a very hard and comfortable watch without ever being graphic or anything like that. And it's just so, how hard it is to watch our main protagonist be like that guy. He's just like a super uncomfortable, like, just weird dude. I feel like weird dude horror and weird dude found footage just really strikes a nerve with me, and that's why I like it, because I do like to feel uncomfortable. And as a young woman, I encounter people like this daily, so I really like this. Next we have is The Black Phone from 2021. I give this movie 4.5 stars. I really enjoyed it. I feel like this was a movie that had like a lot of really mixed opinions, but for stupid reasons. I rarely find myself excited for a release that actually holds up when I do get to see it. This movie had me at like the edge of my seat and didn't hold back, especially for a touchy subject around child abduction. And that's like another subgenre I really like, is like fucked up movies with kids. So of course it kind of hit for me. And Ethan Hawke does a really good way at conveying his character and being really creepy and menacing. For me, what I really liked about this movie is I could have really explained the grabber and his origins, or where he came from, or why he does this, but it didn't, which is something I really enjoyed, because in real life, people who do fucked up things like abduct and murder children, sure, they have a reason, but it's not a fucking good reason or a valid reason. So at the end of the day, why does it even matter what that reason is, other than they're a fucked up person? That's what Ethan Hawke is in this movie as the grabber, and it's super effective. I really liked it. I just am a sucker for something that's real and attainable, that feels like real life to a degree. It has constant tension, lots of really good scares, and had me sitting there like trying to figure out ways that our like main protagonist, who is in Ethan Hawke's basement, to try to help him get out, you know what I mean? I got completely immersed in this world that was created. The Untold Story from 1993. I give this movie 4 stars. This is a Cat 3 film, and if you're familiar, they're from that part of the world. Cannot remember off the top of my head, and are often very violent, extreme, and like gory. This movie has it all from being a cop drama thriller, having brutal slayings, cannibalism, lots of gore, chopstick cervical exams, child murder, slapstick comedy, dismembering, piss drinking, and all based on a true story. So if that sounds like fun to you, this one's for you for sure. Now we have Descent into Darkness, My European Nightmare from 2013. I give this movie 2.5 stars, which in retrospect feels a little unfair, but I feel like I should rewatch it. I really liked this one quite a bit. He has a certain sense of optimism and naiveness that we see descend as each fucked up thing happens to him. Basically, his trip just goes nowhere near as planned. All this shit, he gets like mugged and like so on and so forth, runs out of money, yada yada yada. I feel like this dude just did a really good job of playing a crazy motherfucker, and like again, I said earlier, I am a sucker for weird guy found footage, and this is what this movie is. My only qualm with this movie is I wish it went a little bit harder, because the thing about it's really effective because Sergei is a very believable character, and you empathize with him as all these poor things happen to him. But we have these like parallels, whereas when shit hits the fan and he kind of loses his sanity, is doing crazy fucked up things, we don't see it as much as I feel like we should, especially with how much we saw earlier when things were normal. I just feel like this is one of those movies that its budget had a great limitation on what they could and couldn't do. I just wish they had like a bigger budget to be able to actually transcend what the idea was fully with some of these more graphic scenes. However, this was a really fun one. I just wish it went there, and I was a little bit disappointed because people were comparing this movie to Henry Portrait of the Killer or like August Underground. I understand the August Underground comparison for its realness in this character and his story and his journey, but not in the sense of like the gore. I just wish we had more gore and like brutality in this one. I feel like it would have been super effective. The Sadness. I'm not going to get into this one because I feel like I fucking have yelled at you guys about this movie enough. I gave it 4.5 stars. This movie's from 2021. Fucking love it. Check it out. I'm recommending this movie to everybody. I also have a full review that I will be putting somewhere for you guys to click on for this one. So weirdly enough, I've never seen Martyrs before, from 2008, the original, of course. I give this movie 5 stars. I thought it was fucking awesome. This was my first watch of it. I had never actually watched it before, but I regret not watching it but before this, because it's just what I like. It's super bleak, abysmal, disturbing, visceral, depressing, and it leaves you with a sense of hopelessness when it's all done, which is, what else could you ask for? This movie comes in with a bang and never loses that momentum of shock and like wild shit going on, constantly building tension and fully immersing you into this fucked up story. I cannot give like enough praise to the story, performances, and effects here. I really loved it, and it's the reason why I really like this movie is I feel like I've talked about this before, but as like a fan of horror, I've been a horror fan since I was a kid. I really like the feeling of being made uncomfortable with a movie or feeling like my limits were pushed or my boundaries were pushed. As somebody who is as like deep into this as like a true gore hound, I long for that excitement while watching a movie, and it's rarely ever something I actually get to experience. So it's really fun to be made feel uncomfortable like that, and this movie does it, and it's just absolutely terrifying and depraved, and I really recommend it if you like a depressing, fucked up movie. Hikey, I forgot I watched this movie. No Reason from 2010. I give this 1.5 stars. Olaf Ittenbach did this movie, which you know from like Burning Moon. However, he definitely can't write, director, edit. Bruh. I'll put that out there now, but he definitely knows his gore and effects, which wins some points for me on this one. It just, this movie felt extremely confusing in the editing, story, and directing, and it's an overly complicated story that struggled to be told. Olaf Ittenbach, I feel like he dipped his toes in making a serious movie, but it's just not his strong suit at all. Next, we have Spawn from 2002. This is a 5-star movie for me. This is one of my favorite movies, actually. This movie just never gets old for me. It's just a perfect, depressing, dark comedy that realistically depicts drug use, and everything about this one is perfect. It takes place here in Oregon, which has that extra added touch for me. It follows just a group of drug addicts who use meth, amphetamines, and just what they fucking do. And it's just a really weird and strange time, and it is also shot and edited in a way to simulate the feeling of meth and being high off that shit. And this movie is full of very hilarious moments, trippy moments, and moments that are just like, what the fuck? I always say that this movie is like if Requiem for a Dream is funny, and I highly recommend this one. This is just perfect movie, and we have a great cast here. We have John Leguizamo, we have Brittany Murphy, Jason Schwartzman, Mickey Rourke, etc. And then we also have, Patricia Arquette, of course. And then we have lots of cameos from like Debbie Harry, Billy Corgan, Rob Halford, etc. It's just super fun. Highly recommend. Now I have Unfriended Dark Web from 2018. This movie gets 3.5 stars from me. This is a dog shit movie I absolutely love because it's really funny and engaging, and I feel like it was the best thing that the Unfriended franchise could have done was to ditch the paranormal aspect and make it more real worldy. And I'm just a sucker for a mean-spirited movie, and that's definitely what this is. Now, this is a fucking weird one, The Black Gondola from 2017. I actually wasn't aware of this situation. I guess Make-A-Wish Foundation more or less has a thing where the children with cancer have the opportunity to make movies. They have whoever they would like direct it and, star in it, etc. And they just, like, write it or, like, star in it. Sam Raimi directed this one, and it stars, like, has David Lynch and, like, Johnny Depp, name a couple. There's definitely more people I'm spacing off the top of my head. This is one I had a difficult time rating, but because I feel like I can't give it a poor rating considering its context, I just straight gave it 5 stars. I recommend this just because it is a really difficult and weird watch, just because this is what this like child's way of explaining what they're going through in terms of like their cancer diagnosis and like coping with it is, and it's just a cinematic representation of that, which is very difficult and like heartbreaking to watch. I mean, the movie itself is extremely mid, needless to say, since like a little teenager made it, but with having that context to it, kind of gives you a different perspective as to what you're watching. Now we have Nope from 2022. I give this movie 4 stars. It's a very fun, new, refreshing take on aliens and UFOs. I'm a really big Jordan Peele fan. I feel like he's just really good at building suspense while making sure things are funny. And in addition to being full of lovable characters, I'm really excited to give this one a rewatch. And holy shit, I fucking love this movie. We're All Going to the World's Fair from 2021. I know I briefly touched on this one during my haul video because I did buy that Vinegar Syndrome release of it. I gave it 4 stars. You should come into this movie with the scope of it as like a coming of age film centered around the internet as opposed to a pure horror movie. We're All Going to the World's Fair centers around a teenage girl named Casey who basically doesn't really have a good home life, no friends or anything like that, and finds herself way too immersed into like an online game or like a challenge, if you will, kind of thing. I've already said this before, perpetually on the internet child, way too immersed into, you know, the internet and horror movies and stuff like that. I feel like a lot of us who grew up really like, you know, awkward, depressed, perpetual on the internet, etc., saw a lot of ourselves in Casey, which makes this movie just really hit. I feel like it also captured the internet aspect really well, which is, I feel like, something that a lot of movies have a hard time actually depicting accurately what that experience is as a teenager. And Casey is using this internet challenge as a form of escapism to be like less isolated, to be able to be herself or garner some kind of community, which she doesn't, since she doesn't seem to have friends or like, you know, has absent parents. However, I feel like sometimes doing this further isolates herself and prevents her from making those meaningful relationships that she could in real life. She uses the challenge as a device to be able to communicate concerning thoughts that she's having, to be played off as a game or a way to like have fun or be herself. I highly recommend this movie. I think it just started streaming on HBO Max, and I think you guys should all watch it, especially if you were a weird kid like me growing up. This will kind of hit a little bit differently. Now we have The Scary of 61st from 2021. I give this a half star. From my understanding, like the Red Scare podcast made this. This is akin to Dash Cam. That's all I'm gonna say. This is like on some like weird fucking like conspiracy theorist like QAnon shit. It's a movie about some women who move into an apartment that they believe to have formerly been owned by Jeffrey Epstein, where he was doing like child trafficking and stuff like that. It's really bizarre and uncomfortable, but in like a bad way. And it's just a fucking shitty movie too at the end of the day. So yeah, just skip this one. Next I have is Nacho Cerda's Aftermath. Again, full video on this shit I will have linked. I really like this one. It was just a really gross movie. Man who works at a morgue, after everybody else has gone home for the day, he decides to have fun with the bodies. I gave this 4 stars. Now we have Graham Cracker Cream Pie from Huck Budco. Letterboxd has the Cooking with Huck Budco listed by each segment, so I just rated my favorite one and went from there. I gave this 5 stars. This is my favorite segment. I just love the raw grittiness of this whole movie, and again, full video here. Cooking with Huck Budco is just a really mean-spirited, strange revenge like short film that I have to recommend if you like gross shit. Next, I have Infrared from 2022. I give this movie 3 stars. It's like a found footage movie surrounding ghost hunters. There's like tension between like the cast of the ghost hunting show. This movie fell short in like every way except for it stars it also has Greg Sestero from The Room. And all I have to say is he 100% fucking carried this movie and brought it to life. I feel like he just fucking believed in this movie or something. I don't know what it is. He just like full on weird guy acted his ass off in this. That kind of made up for the shitty parts. But I just wish he was just on screen more. That's kind of how I end up feeling at the end of the day. And with that being said, if somebody wanted to make a creep ripoff, like weird guy found footage and Greg Sestero is the star, I would 100% fucking watch that movie. Now we have the Andy Baker tape from 2022. I give this movie 1.5 stars. My thing about this movie is it resembled a lot of movies I do like without any of the cool parts. And as we've discussed a lot, is that I am a sucker for weird guy found footage, and that's what this movie is. Basically, a dude goes to go find his like long lost brother. The guy's a fucking weirdo. My problem with this is that a big reason why I do like the weird guy found footage is because it's something you can accomplish without a budget very easily, since the limitations aren't really there, since you don't have to worry about like, you know, effects and like doing all this crazy shit. Just make the weird guy do weird guy shit. But it was entirely lacking tension or scares, which is something that a budget shouldn't be able to limit them on in this scenario. Whereas I feel like this is a route that you can do a lot without money. So it's hard for me to understand like the excuse. I really did enjoy the vibe and the premise. It just never got packed a punch, never got weird or scary or anything. It just kind of falls flat. I really wanted to like this one, but I just didn't. Now we have Trainwreck Woodstock 99 from 2022. Documentary just details how we ended up with the disaster that was Woodstock 99. This was a topic I have an extensive amount of knowledge around for absolutely no reason. More or less, I just fucking went down a rabbit hole one night and kind of never came back from it. Since I do know a lot about this, it was kind of a bummer to see its presentation. I did like it quite a bit because it did focus on actually how the mess came about from the behind the scenes aspect and things like that. Yet they brush over some really key things that are part of the controversial bits of Woodstock 99. Like, for example, they don't even mention that people died there whatsoever, and the whole sexual assault situation is entirely brushed over, and it's talked about for like maybe a minute. And it was kind of weird to me how we didn't really focus on a lot of the big performers either. I understand that this was to primarily discuss like a lot of the chaos which happened during, Korn and Limp Bizkit and stuff. Yet I still think it would have been valuable to see, like, for example, fucking Metallica played Foo Fighters, Everclear, Megadeth, DMX, but we don't even get to have that even touched on. But I do think it was really fun though to see things from the perspective of the producers of the event, to see how they got here and how they just didn't give a shit about anything but money, which kind of led us to this, just from the mass amount of cutting corners and not giving shit about the people that were there. Now we have They/Them from 2022. I give this 1.5 stars. All I'm going to say about this one is, for my fun LGBTQ plus slashers, I'll stick to Sleepaway Camp. Do not bother with this one. Holy shit. Okay, so then He's Watching. I fucking love this movie here in 2022. I give it 4 stars. This is like a fucking weird found footage, very strange. This, how do I say? This is like if Lucifer Valentine made a movie with kids, minus the vomit and porn aspects. It's very nauseating and just disorienting in like a way where you're like, did I get Ambien before I watch this? I feel like this film will be an immediate yes or immediate no, depending on who you are, and you will know that very quickly. I was immediately in the yes crowd. In addition to this, I grew up with, being scared of things like ARGs and weird videos I saw online, as opposed to scary movies. I feel like if that's like the crowd you're in, you would like this, because it very much feels that way. It really like reminded me of like Ash Vlogs or 2 hours and 32 minutes. The thing that's the similarity between those sorts of YouTube channel ARGs and He's Watching is that the videos are super creepy, they're unsettling, and it's hard to make anything of them other than knowing you're uncomfortable with what you're seeing. And it's super effective. I recommend this one if you're a person, again, from the internet and like weird shit. Another strange ass movie, The Oregonian from 2011. I gave this one 4 stars. I also really like this one. Are you noticing a common theme in my taste in movies? I just like fucking weird movies. I'll start by saying that this is I watch it because I live in Oregon. That's what it took my interest here. It has a very sparse plot where I'm under the impression it feels like you're just to turn off your brain and just fucking roll with it kind of thing. It has like super strange visuals, and also in addition to that has a very strange sound design and weird overdub. I just really like this movie. I just feel like, however, my main qualm is that at times it felt repetitive. It could have benefited from being about 15 minutes shorter. It was just very surreal, and that's just like the best way to describe it. I recommend, if you like weird shit, watch this movie as well. It'll be an immediate guess for you if you and I have similar tastes at all. Next I have is Bodies from 2022. I give this movie 3.5 stars. I really like this one. I didn't think I was going to like it at all. I thought it was going to be a dog shit movie. I fucking hated the trailer, but I was like, well, I'm going to go see it because I go see every horror movie in theaters, basically. So, and this one, here's the thing about it. It had a super strong beginning, super strong ending. It lost me in the middle, though, but I almost feel like that crazy ass ending redeemed itself for me. This is one I am basically not going to say anything about, because I feel like if you talk about this movie whatsoever, you're going to ruin it, and this movie is a movie that you need to go into not knowing anything about. Next is Knock Knock from 2015. I give this movie 3.5 stars. All I have to say is that
it's free fucking pizza.
I love this movie. This is a fucking dog shit movie that I think is going to be a future cult classic. This is one of my favorite. Have a couple drinks with some friends and put this movie on and just watch like the fucking insanity. It is a pretty bad comedic horror film, but it's entertaining all throughout. Imagine if Funny Games was a bad movie that was funny. And I'm going to just skirt over this since I just put that video up like a week or two ago on August Underground. I gave this movie 4 stars. I love the realism in this movie. I love the super like day-to-day realistic found footage aspect. 4 stars from me. Awesome movie. And then August Underground's Mortem, I gave 3.5. My only qualm with August Underground's Mortem is that we were lacking some of that day-to-day stuff, but then we got amazing gore and some super awesome, depraved, gross out scenes with that. Penance, I gave 2.5. I just didn't care for it. I didn't really feel like we needed that conclusion that Penance was, but I also didn't entirely hate it. Next, I have Antichrist, Lars von Trier movie from 2009. I gave it 3 stars. I feel like it's like an objectively well-made and like pretty movie. Pretty disturbing. Definitely has some very eye-catching moments and things like that. However, I feel like I waited too long to watch it because I wasn't as impressed as I would have liked to have been, especially considering how much I enjoy The House That Jack Built and Nymphomaniac. I think those movies are amazing. I did like it quite a bit though. I just feel like it didn't really do that much for me, and that's like okay, because I didn't feel like I left this exactly feeling like I wasted my time or I didn't necessarily enjoy it. It just wasn't as impactful as I was hoping for. Now I have We Are the Flesh from 2016. I give this movie 2.5 stars. I don't really know. This one is foreign. I know it had subtitles. It was like a very artsy, weird movie with unsimulated sex. And it's like the kind of thing where that was overall a pretty movie, yet I had trouble feeling invested or like I should care. I give it that rating because there are some characters and things that happen at the beginning that I really enjoy, but once that's taken out of the equation, it just gets a little boring and tedious to sit through weird incest for like 45 minutes or so. Now I have Grey Gardens from 1975. I give this movie 4 stars. I've never seen Grey Gardens before up until now. I really had fun watching this one. It's a documentary that really pulls you in with no plot, no sense of what's going on, and just convoluted chaos. This movie feels like it's like a John Waters or Harmony Korine movie, but then it's just an actual documentary about some just strange individuals. I highly recommend it, and you just get fully immersed and you're ready to live with these fucking weird old ladies for the rest of your life. And my last movie for this period, I watched this on August 30th, is Orphan First Kill. I gave this movie 3 stars. This was a straight video on demand, and I was actually really scared for this one because I actually thoroughly do enjoy the original Orphan movie. I think it's really fun. I was scared since we already, of course, know the twist that the orphan that they adopt that's evil is actually
an old woman.
Yeah, so I was scared that it was going to be the same movie, more or less, but if we already have that knowledge of the twist that she's actually a fucking 40-year-old woman or whatever the fuck who's like has dwarfism. This one goes full sicko mode crazy on its twist, and it's really fun and funny. I recommend this if you like a schlocky, cheesy movie that where you're just like, what the fuck? Because this one somehow does that again, and it's really good for that reason. And I can't really explain why, but I don't want to ruin it for you, but all I gotta say is, in this one, the new Orphan movie, I was rooting for Esther to give it the dad this time. Alright, and that concludes my April through August Letterboxd recap. I know I said I was going to do these monthlies, but that was like a fucking lie. I'll be doing these as I feel like, and whenever it feels appropriate. I like to get through and do a bunch of fucking movies at once and talk about like that. It's like 3 a.m. now, so thank you guys so much for watching. This is Ellie, aka Looks from the Crypt. As per usual, all my links and all that good stuff will be listed down below. Anyways, thank you guys so much for watching. This is me, Ellie, and I am out.